His alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., not because he had to be anywhere at 6, he just never slept past it anymore. 12 years of early mornings had rewired something in him permanently. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling of his BOQ room, listening to the bass hum to life outside. Generators, ground crews, the distant whine of a jet on the taxiway. He sent his wife a voice message before breakfast, told her the food here was terrible, told her he missed the dog more than he'd admit out loud, told her, and this was the part she'd replay later, over and over, that he'd be home by Thursday. Thursday, he ate with his squadron. Someone made a joke about the weather. Someone else complained about the coffee. He laughed. He was the kind of person who laughed easily, the kind of laugh that made other people feel like whatever they said was the funniest thing they'd said all week. His RIO called him a golden retriever in a flight suit. He took it as a compliment. Briefing at 0900, standard patrol, route he'd flown 40 times. He suited up with the particular efficiency of a man who had done this so many times the ritual had become invisible to him. The straps, the helmet, the checks. None of it felt heavy anymore. None of it felt like anything. Wheels up at 10:23. At 10:31, the engine gave one sound it had never made before. A sound with no name in the technical manual. A sound that meant this is happening right now and there is nothing you can do about it. He pulled the handle. The seat fired. 400 knots of wind hit him like a wall made of physics. Both legs broke on landing. He rolled into a ravine. The radio worked, but no one answered. The beacon activated. Somewhere, a light began blinking on a screen. He lay on his back in the dirt. He could hear voices he didn't recognize getting closer. He thought about Thursday. Somewhere above him, on the other side of the cloud layer, someone was already moving. Someone you haven't met yet. At 3,000 feet, you cut the main chute. Not a malfunction, a choice. The HAHO glide had taken you 14 miles through cloud cover so thick you navigated by compass and muscle memory alone. Now the ground was coming up fast, and the only thing between you and it was a reserve you'd packed yourself 3 days ago in a hangar that smelled like hydraulic fluid and bad coffee. You hit the release. The reserve deployed. Below you, through breaks in the cloud, you could see the valley. You could see the smoke. You could hear, even from here, the irregular rhythm of a firefight that hadn't decided who was winning yet. Your medical kit, 82 pounds. Your rifle, 10 pounds. Hours since you last slept, 31. Minutes the pilot had been on the ground, 38. You didn't do the math on that last one. Boots hit earth. No pause, no breath, no moment of arrival. You were already running before the canopy settled behind you. Uneven ground, loose rock, low scrub, a dry stream bed that turned under your right ankle, and you absorbed it without breaking stride. 200 meters felt like 2 miles. 2 miles would have felt the same. You found him by sound first, not screaming. Something quieter than that, the sound a person makes when they've moved past screaming into somewhere further down. He was behind a rock on his back, one arm thrown over his face like he was blocking out the sun. There was no sun. His flight suit had gone a dark color from the waist down. His legs were at angles that legs aren't supposed to make. You dropped beside him. He moved his arm and looked at you. And that look, you'd seen it before, you'd see it again, but it never stopped meaning what it meant. It was the look of a man who had already written the ending and was surprised to find the story still going. You didn't explain who you were. You didn't list your qualifications. You said 3 words. I've got you. And then you went to work, because that's the only answer to that look. Not rank, not training, not the 2 years of hell that put you here. Just, I've got you. Here's what most people don't know about this moment. You weren't the hero of it. He was. He held on long enough for you to get there. That took more than anything you'd trained for. And what you were, what you are, is the reason holding on was worth it. Here's something the US military doesn't advertise. Every special operations unit in existence was built around a core capability, a thing they do better than anyone on Earth. For most of them, that thing is ending lives with precision, speed, and minimum exposure. That's not a criticism, that's a job description. That's what the mission requires, and they are extraordinarily good at it. Delta Force, direct action. They go in, they eliminate the target, they leave. The room is quieter when they're done. SEALs, maritime and direct action. Same logic, different entry point. Marine Raiders, assault. They hit hard, they hit fast, and they hit places other units can't reach. These are the sword. Every military needs a sword, but a sword has one problem. The people on your side bleed too. Which is where the logic of PJs becomes necessary. and strange. Because the Air Force looked at the battlefield and decided it needed something that didn't exist anywhere else. Not a better weapon, not a faster trigger, something that could go anywhere a weapon could go. Deep cover, hostile territory, zero support, active fire. And do the opposite of what every other unit was trained for. Save lives, specifically the lives of the people everyone else was trying to kill. 500 PJs. That's the entire active duty strength of the pararescue community right now. Not in any given theater, on the planet. 500. The US military has over 1.3 million active duty personnel. The country they serve has 330 million people. And the capability to go into the worst place on Earth under fire with a medical kit and a rifle and bring someone home alive. That capability lives in 500 people. Think about what that number means. It means when a pilot goes down behind enemy lines at 2 a.m. in a snowstorm, there is an extraordinarily short list of people who can go get him. It means the margin between someone coming home and someone not coming home is sometimes a single human being who made a specific choice years ago. It means the question isn't just who are these people? The question is, what made them choose this? Picture a room with 100 people in it, not 100 random people. 100 people who were already exceptional before they walked through the door. Division I athletes, combat veterans from other branches, men who had spent years building bodies and minds specifically for moments of physical extremity, the kind of people who, in any other context, would be the toughest person in the room. They're not looking at each other. Each one is doing the same private calculation. I wonder if I'm the one who doesn't make it. Most of them are right. The Pararescue Indoctrination course doesn't begin with a test of strength. It begins with a test of something that has no name on any fitness chart. They run you until running stops being a physical experience and becomes a negotiation between your body and whatever is underneath your body, the part that decides whether you're done. They swim you until the water stops feeling like water and starts feeling like an argument. They deprive you of sleep until the edges of things go soft and you're not entirely sure if the instructor screaming at you is real or a projection of your own exhaustion. And then they put you in the pool. They call it water confidence training. That name is doing a lot of work. What it actually is, they put you in the deep end, they come up behind you, and they take away every advantage you have. Mask off, hands tied, flipped upside down, and then they wait to see what you do with nothing. The answer they're looking for isn't technique, it isn't strength, it's a specific quality that has no good English word. The ability to stay organized when every animal instinct in your nervous system is screaming a single syllable at maximum volume. Some people black out. The safety divers pull them up. They wake up coughing on the pool deck, and most of them stand up, walk to the bell mounted on the wall, and ring it. One clean motion. Then they're gone. No one stops them. No one argues. No one says, "Are you sure?" They just disappear back into a world where the pool is something you swim laps in. Here's the thing about the ones who ring the bell. They're not weak. Several of them were stronger than the people who stayed. Several had more combat experience. Several had trained harder, longer, more deliberately than anyone else in the room. They had everything the course was supposed to require, except one thing, the pull, that specific, irrational, non-negotiable need to be the one who goes. Not the one who fights, not the one who wins, the one who goes into the worst place, toward the worst moment, because someone there needs what only you can bring. You can't train that into a person. You can only filter for it. By the end of indoctrination, the room of 100 is a room of 10, sometimes 8. The ones still standing aren't necessarily the strongest people who walked in. They're just the ones who couldn't imagine leaving. Surviving indoctrination doesn't make you a PJ, it makes you someone who gets to keep trying. What comes next isn't more of the same. It's something different and in some ways harder, because the physical punishment doesn't stop, but now it has a purpose you can see. Each school doesn't just add a skill, it adds a layer to who you are. By the end, the person who walked into that room of 100 is gone. What's left is something that was built deliberately, one transformation at a time. Combat Dive School, 10 weeks in Panama City, Florida. You arrive knowing how to swim. You leave knowing how to disappear underwater. Closed circuit rebreathers. No bubbles, no signature, no evidence you were ever there. Underwater navigation and zero visibility using nothing but a compass and the count of your own kicks. The ocean stops being an obstacle. It becomes a way in. Army Airborne, 3 weeks. Static line jumps from 1,250 feet. By this point, it's almost easy, which tells you something about what came before. You're surrounded by soldiers who are nervous about stepping out of a perfectly good aircraft, and you help them. Not because you're showing off, because that's starting to become a reflex. Someone struggles, you move toward it. You don't think about it anymore. Military freefall, 5 weeks. Now you jump for real. HAHO. High altitude, high opening. Exit at 25,000 feet. Open immediately. Glide for miles through air so thin your oxygen mask isn't optional. Navigate to a target you can't see from where you started. Land soft enough to fight the moment your boots touch ground. The sky stops being empty space. It becomes a route. SERE. 3 weeks. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. This is the one nobody talks about the right way. They don't break you to be cruel. They break you because the alternative is finding out what you're made of for the first time when it actually matters. The resistance phase teaches you something that no manual will write plainly. Everyone breaks eventually. The goal isn't to be unbreakable. The goal is to be slow, to give nothing important, to buy time with the pieces of yourself you can afford to lose. Paramedic training, 6 months. This is where the mission becomes real in your hands. Surgical airways, needle decompression, field blood transfusions, procedures that most paramedics will spend entire careers never performing. You practice them until they live in your fingers, not just your memory. You train on live tissue. It's brutal. It's supposed to be, because the alternative is hesitating when the only chance is now. At the end of 2 years, you're not the same person who couldn't explain the pull. You've become the answer to it. One quiet room, a maroon beret placed in your hands, heavier than it should be. Now prove you deserve it. There's an unwritten rule in pararescue that nobody explains during training. You find out by watching, by being in the helicopter enough times to notice the pattern, by paying attention to who moves first and who moves last, and understanding that the order is never random. When the bird lands in a hot zone, you're out before the rotors stop. When the bird lifts, you're the last one on. When the hoist extraction begins, one person at a time, spinning in the wind on a cable while the fuselage takes rounds, the order is fixed: wounded first, operators second, PJ last. Not because your life matters less, because no one else on that aircraft can do what you do on the way back. The flight home is not recovery time. It's the second half of the operation. You work the whole way. Your first real deployment changes something specific in you that training couldn't. Training prepared your hands. Deployment teaches your nervous system. The difference between a scenario and a real casualty is not technique. Your technique holds. It's the smell, the weight, the particular sound a person makes when they're trying to stay conscious, because they understand that consciousness is keeping them alive right now. And the faces. Operators don't trust easily. These are people who have been in enough situations to know exactly what competence looks like under pressure and exactly what its absence looks like. They don't give their trust as a courtesy, they give it as a verdict. The first time a team leader looks at you, not at your beret, not at your kit, but at you, and just nods, you understand something that 2 years of training couldn't fully teach. You've been vetted by the only jury that matters. People who've seen what happens when the person in your role isn't good enough. When a shooter goes down, he's not calling for another shooter. He's calling for you. And when you arrive, when you drop beside him and your hands start moving, you see it happen in real time. The thing that makes this worth everything. His body stops bracing. His shoulders drop half an inch. His breathing, which was fast and shallow and wrong, finds a different rhythm. He hasn't been saved yet. You haven't done anything yet, but you're there. And somehow, impossibly, that's already most of it. Nobody warns you about the specific ones. The experienced PJs tell you losses will come. They tell you the faces stay with you. They say it with the measured tone of people who have learned to carry weight without showing the strain. You hear them. You believe them. You file it under things I will deal with when they happen. You don't understand yet. His beacon had been active for 6 hours when you reached him. 3-mile hike through hostile territory at night, 100 pounds of gear, terrain that didn't care about your timeline. By the time you found him, he'd moved himself behind a rock formation, dragged himself actually on his elbows, leaving a trail you followed the last 200 meters. He was conscious. That was the first thing, conscious and talking, which in your experience means either very good or very bad, and you knew within 30 seconds which one this was. Shrapnel to the chest from his own ejection seat, collapsed lung, internal bleeding you could see the outline of without any equipment at all. You did everything. Needle decompression, IV wide open. You called for extraction and gave them the situation in the flat clinical language. That means now without using the word. The helicopter was 20 minutes out, taking fire, trying. He knew. They always know. The ones who've been close to this before, who've watched it happen to other people. They develop a sense for it the way you develop a sense for when a room is about to go wrong. He wasn't panicking. He was somewhere past panic in a place that was almost calm. He didn't ask if you were going to save him. He asked, "Will you remember what I tell you?" That question has lived in you ever since. His wife's name, his daughter's name, Emma, 6 years old, just lost her first tooth. The name of the song playing when he and his wife danced at their wedding. The thing he needed her to know about the argument they'd had the week before he deployed. That it wasn't her fault, that he wasn't still carrying it, that he wanted her to know that specifically. He talked, you worked, you told him he was going to be fine. He smiled at that. Not unkindly, the way a person smiles when they appreciate the effort of a lie told with good intentions. His vitals crashed at minute 17. The helicopter arrived at minute 23. You carried him to it anyway. You rode back in silence. You wrote the report in the language reports are written in: date, time, interventions, outcome. And the language did what it was supposed to do, which was hold the facts at a distance where they couldn't touch you. Then you put the pen down. And for the first time since you were a child, in a corner of a base 10,000 miles from anywhere that mattered to you, you cried. Not because you failed, because you were there. Because he wasn't alone. Because he got to say the things he needed to say to someone who promised and kept the promise to remember every word. You didn't save him, but you were what he needed at the end. And some nights, that has to be enough. Nobody briefs you on the coming home part. There are manuals for every phase of the mission: insertion, treatment, extraction, recovery, step-by-step protocols for situations most people can't imagine. But there's no manual for the moment you walk through your front door and your daughter runs at you and wraps herself around your legs and asks what you want for dinner. The transition happens in seconds. One moment you're somewhere that operates on a completely different set of rules. The next moment someone needs to know if you want tacos or pasta. You choose pasta. You sit at the table. You are physically present in a way that feels, from the inside, strangely difficult to maintain. Your wife asks how it was. You say, fine. Not because you're hiding something, because there is no answer to that question that belongs at a dinner table with a 6-year-old asking if she can have dessert. The language for what you've seen doesn't translate. The experiences don't compress into something you can hand to another person without handing them something they didn't ask to carry. So you say fine. You change the subject, and the distance, the one that was always there but stayed manageable before, grows 1 millimeter wider. Some PJ marriages survive this, some don't. The ones that survive are not necessarily the ones with the most love. They're the ones where two people quietly agreed, without ever saying it out loud, to build a life around a gap that couldn't be filled, and to call that a life worth having anyway. Your kids know you disappear. They've built their understanding of you around it. Dad helps people. Dad has to go sometimes. Dad comes back different, and then becomes himself again after a few days. They're more adaptable than you give them credit for. That adaptability costs them something you won't fully understand until they're older, and you ask them what they remember about childhood, and they pause a half second too long before answering. There's a version of strength nobody talks about in the recruitment materials. It's not physical, it's not tactical, it's the ability to sit at a dinner table and be genuinely present with people who love you after you've been somewhere that redefined what presence costs. Some days you have it, some days pasta is the best you can do. And the people at that table, they set a place for you anyway, every time, without being asked. That's its own kind of mission, one that never fully debrief. Over the years, you build 2 folders. The first one is physical, a worn manila envelope that lives in your locker, and then later in a box in the back of a closet. Letters from mothers, photographs from weddings, a card from a man who walked his daughter down the aisle on legs that work because you got him to surgery inside the window. A single voicemail you've never deleted. A stranger's voice saying your name and thank you, and I don't know how else to say this. You add to it slowly, one piece of paper at a time. Each one is proof, not of heroism, not of excellence, just that something happened that wouldn't have happened without you, that a specific person is alive and specific people who love them still have them. The folder is thin. The weight of it is not. The second folder has no physical form. It lives somewhere behind your eyes. It has no index, no order, no dates. Just faces. The ones you reached in time and the ones you didn't. The ones who talked to you at the end and the ones who were already past talking. The pilot who asked you to remember. You remember. You will always remember. You don't open this folder intentionally. It opens on its own. At 3 a.m., in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, sometimes in the middle of a laugh at something completely unrelated. There's no warning and no schedule. It just surfaces, looks at you for a moment, and recedes. You've stopped trying to close it. Somewhere out there, the people in your first folder are living lives. Full, ordinary, complicated lives. Complaining about traffic, forgetting to call their mothers, having arguments about small things that feel large in the moment, living the way people live when living is something they take for granted. They don't know your name, you don't need them to. The first folder is the answer to the second one. Not a cure, not a balance, just an answer. Evidence that the cost purchased something real. That has to be enough. Most days, it is. 2 years after Thursday, he walks his daughter to school. She's 8 now. She holds his hand and talks without stopping. About her teacher, about a song she heard, about whether clouds have feelings. He listens to every word. He is extraordinarily good at listening now. People who've been close to silence tend to be. He doesn't know your name. He never learned it. In the official record, you're a job title, a unit designation, a set of interventions listed in chronological order. In his memory, you're something less specific and more permanent. The person who came down through the clouds. The one who said 3 words and meant them. He thinks about you sometimes, not every day. Life has a way of filling back in around the spaces where it almost ended. But sometimes, when his daughter laughs at something, when he catches himself complaining about something small, when Thursday comes around every week and he's still here for it, he thinks someone made a choice that made this possible. He doesn't know what that choice cost. You do. You know about the 2 years of training that broke and rebuilt you. About the pool sessions and the sleepless weeks and the moment in SERE when you found out exactly where your limit was and decided to move past it anyway. You know about the man you couldn't save and the promise you kept. About the dinner tables and the distance and the folder in the back of the closet. He's walking his daughter to school because you were willing to pay a price he'll never see the invoice for. That's the whole thing. That's all of it. Not glory, not recognition, not a movie or a book deal or a parade. Just a man and his daughter on an ordinary morning in an ordinary life that exists because somewhere in the architecture of a broken situation you showed up. Tonight, somewhere on the other side of the world, a beacon is activating. A light is blinking on a screen. A very short list of people is being consulted, and one of them, someone in the middle of sleep or a meal or a conversation that will have to wait, is already moving toward the smoke, toward the silence, toward the person who needs them more than they've ever needed anyone. That's the job. That's always been the job, that others may live.